Ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat here on the Off the Mic Sports Network. The return, I am so excited for this with two of my best friends in the world, Mad Sports. We're calling this the Mad Sports Show, formerly Mad Sports Radio. Danny Udelf and Andrew Marks are here with me. We're bringing it back. We're going to talk about some of the big topics in the NFL and obviously our favorite teams. Danny is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. It's amazing. I've been best friends with him for almost my entire life, and I haven't wanted to kill him. And then Andrew Marks, God bless him, is a Dallas Cowboys fan.
The
And
worst.
yeah, so we'll talk about the Cowboys a little bit later on here in the show. But boys, let's start off talking about with what I think is probably the biggest story in the NFL, and that is Bryce Young has been benched after only 18 starts after being the number one pick last year. And there's so many layers to this situation in the fact that Bryce Young, there was a lot of question as to whether or not he should have been the first pick. And then CJ Stroud is going on this all-time heater. He's been an amazing story for the Houston Texans, taking them to the playoffs. And, you know, the ownership there. So I'll let you guys have at this. I've talked about it here on the channel. Danny, what's your perspective here on Bryce Young getting benched just 2 games into his second season in the NFL?
Well, I think it sucks for him. I think Carolina's a hot mess. That trade was a disaster from the start. Obviously, as we, have moved forward, we can see that Caleb Williams was part of that trade. Now that
Yes.
that draft has happened, so basically, Carolina traded away probably a better quarterback or opportunity for a better quarterback to get a guy that they've benched after 18 games. Bryce Young's been terrible. He's been absolutely god awful. I remember, before that draft, I remember we were all talking about this, and I told you guys I didn't like Bryce Young. I didn't think he had NFL potential, and we're seeing it. I really think Stroud should have been the pick, and it's showing now. And you guys can probably corroborate that because you probably remember me saying that. So people aren't going to be like, oh, after the fact you're saying Stroud. But I mean, looking at his stats, he's done nothing. He's played 18 games. He only has 2 multi-touchdown passing games so far in his entire career, which is terrible. Last year, he was second in the entire NFL in getting sacked. He was sacked 62 times. That is a big part of the offensive line, but I also think he holds the ball too long, doesn't really know what he's doing. He has a very, very low quarterback IQ, and I think that's a big thing that's holding back a lot of quarterbacks from true potential. We've seen it with a lot of quarterbacks in recent years. Some guys come to mind like Jameis Winston. I'll throw that name out there. Johnny Manziel. These really talented college guys that just don't have the NFL IQ to adapt to the NFL game as NFL quarterbacks. I think Bryce Young is one of those, but I also don't think that Carolina is putting him in any good situation. He has terrible receivers. He has a horrendous offensive line. He has a horrendous coaching situation. The ownership's terrible. Carolina is the true definition of a dumpster fire right now, and I don't know how they're going to possibly bounce back from this. If they are giving up on Bryce Young, he probably has very limited trade value right now, so they're not going to get anything back. They sold their future for this guy, and they're letting him sit after 18 games. I don't know where they can go from here.
Okay, so I agree and also disagree with you. I think Bryce Young has a lot of talent. Is he CJ Stroud? No, and that has already been proven in a year and 2 games that he should have been the number 1 overall pick. But you said it, Carolina's a hot mess, and it's more than a hot mess, and it makes Mike. Am I allowed to cuss on this?
What's that? Yeah, you're absolutely, yeah, go ahead. I cuss all the, yeah, go ahead.
This makes no fucking sense. Like, no fucking sense. You gave up 2 firsts and 2 seconds and DJ Moore for this guy. I get, like, they kind of had a change in management, but, I mean, this guy is not that bad. The team is just that bad, and you gave up all that for the number 1 overall pick for 1 season and 2 games. And, I mean, I don't think the guy's that bad. I'm not saying he could be a superstar, but he could be an Alex Smith or something like that. I mean,
But the investment is the problem.
Yeah. He has the worst offensive line. He's got a below-average defense. He's got very inexperienced weapons other than Adam Thielen, who is
100 years old.
He's 100 years old. He's essentially a third receiver, slot receiver type. I mean, it's just it's completely just ridiculous to give up on a guy after a year and 2 games with the worst team in football. It's just you need to just power through it. Going to Andy Dalton at this rate just reminds me of when the Chargers back in the day went to Drew Brees, and then they decided, nah, he sucks. We're going back to Doug Flutie. And then all of a sudden, Drew Brees says, if you draft a quarterback, it's going to be the worst decision you ever made. And arguably it was. He improved. They finally put a team around him. And then, he had that injury and he left for the Saints. But, like, you just don't give up on a guy this early. You just don't. It's terrible management. I don't understand. It's just the guy is not that bad, and there is room for improvement. And I tell you right now, if they choose to pick a quarterback anytime soon, that's even worse, because then you're just going to have another guy who is a hell of a talent, and he's going to be in a shitty situation. It's just this vicious cycle.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And there's another thing at play here, guys, in regards to this situation. Like Danny and you both said it very well. I don't think Bryce Young is by any means bad. I think what makes this trending towards one of the biggest busts in the history of the league is because of just the infrastructure around him in Carolina. The ownership is terrible. I mean, for God's sake, like Steve Wilkes won them a bunch of games a couple years ago. They go to Frank Reich, who is a good coach, and they give up on him like halfway through the season last year. And then they bring in Dave Canales because nobody wanted that job. And the reason why this is happening is because Dave Canales has got to look out for himself, because if he doesn't win any games, David Tepper has proven that he is willing to fire and cut anybody at any point. So
he's a moron for taking that job then.
Right, exactly. Like it's Dave Canales basically knowing, hey, I got one shot in the NFL and I took it. But you're absolutely right. It's going to look bad on him. And if this gets bad with Andy Dalton, which I don't anticipate it getting better. Andy Dalton's like 35, 36 years old. He's been in the league forever, but he is not a starting quarterback in the NFL anymore. But this is all completely at the feet of the Carolina Panthers, from the decision to make the move up to drafting Bryce Young over CJ Stroud, which some people thought was the right move because Bryce Young won a Heisman Trophy. But that being said, Bryce Young was at Alabama. He was at Alabama. Right. And he doesn't have all these physical gifts, so you can mask that. When Nick Saban's your coach, you have the best offensive line, you have the best skill position players in the NFL or in college football. But now you're with the Carolina Panthers. You got a terrible owner who thinks he knows everything, and he's just getting trigger happy. He's firing coaches left and right, and you're trading away your star players for basically nothing. Like Brian Burns gets traded away. Christian McCaffrey gets traded away. They did get some value there, but this all comes from the top. And I feel bad for Bryce Young. I hope he's able to power through it and have a good career, because he is a great kid. And I think everybody has this great processing mindset. The problem is he's 5'10" and 190 pounds. And it's just like that was never going to work at this level. And when you compound it with the fact that Carolina just gave up all of this draft capital, they still have a second-round pick that needs to be conveyed to Chicago next year. So this trade's still not over.
And also, you in terms of like shorter quarterbacks, they got to have some kind of trait.
Right, like Kyler, yeah.
Yeah, like Kyler Murray. He's got a hell of an arm, and he's the most creative scrambler in the league other than Lamar Jackson. I mean, it's the thing about Bryce is that he just doesn't have any trait that sticks out. He's pretty above average at everything in terms of skill-wise. And, I mean, realistically, if you could do it over 101 times out of 100, you would take CJ Stroud. But still, Bryce is not that bad, and the Panthers are dumb as hell.
Yeah, no, this is a mess of a situation, and like I said, it's unprecedented, really, to see a team effectively bail on a starting quarterback just 18 games into his NFL career. It's insane. So, big story in the NFL there. I want to do this here, a story that came in late last night in terms of the Monday Night Football game, and I know Andrew's going to love talking about this because he just hates this team at hand. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. They lose at home on Monday Night Football 22-21 against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons had no business winning this game. None. Like, the Eagles had this game won. And Kirk Cousins, who we've all shat on, like everybody across the world has shat on Kirk Cousins, comes up with a big drive at the end of this game to get the win. And there was questionable decision-making all over the place for the Eagles. And it goes back to, and I'm going to give Andrew the floor here because I brought up this analogy because I think it's just encapsulates just how I feel about Nick Sirianni. The Eagles started 9-1 last year, guys. They finished 11-6 or 11-7, I think, and now they're 1-1 to start this season. They have an early bye, and I think they've got the Saints and the Bucks on the road before their Week 5 bye. If I'm the Eagles, I really have to consider long and hard about firing this guy. He shouldn't have come back. And when you've got a team, and Andrew, I know you'll probably dismiss this, but it might be tongue in cheek. The Eagles are a really talented football team. That's a great roster. You can't be losing games like this to the Falcons. So, Andrew, floor is yours. What do you think about this guy, Nick Sirianni? Because I just think that there's nowhere else to go. And there's good coaches out there like a Bill Belichick that could potentially coach this team and do it a lot better.
I would love Bill Belichick coach the Eagles. I think they'd win a Super Bowl. Nick Sirianni, for lack of a better term, I just don't like the guy. I think he's a supreme douche. He just constantly just has the worst attitude, arrogant attitude about the opposing teams. Correct me if I'm wrong. What are they like? 2-9, 3-9, or something in the last 11 or 12?
Yeah, they started 9-1, and then I think they finished 11-6, and then they lost the playoff game. So they finished 11-7,
and they're 1-1.
And they're 1-1 this year. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they have like spiraled like in the last decent amount of games, and it's just they're shooting themselves in the foot most games. It's just bad coaching. I mean, if Mike McCarthy did this shit, he would be fired immediately. I mean, it's unbelievable. So yeah, it tickled me to see the Eagles lose. Sirianni is essentially Italian Deion Sanders. And
that is such a great analogy. You texted me that the other day, man, and I was like, dude, I cover college football and I've covered Coach Prime. That is about the perfect analogy to describe Nick Sirianni.
And the fact that he had that stupid play with Saquon last night, Saquon should have caught the damn ball. I mean,
right.
He had such a great game, but the conservative safe thing to do is to waste another 40 seconds on the clock and kick a field goal. I doubt the Falcons have an easy enough time getting down the field like they did at the end of that game. Sirianni cost them the game. It's not Saquon Barkley, it's Sirianni.
And also, like, one thing, and Danny, if you've got a thought on this too, if you want to chime in on it, basically the problem is with the end of that game is like, yeah, conventional wisdom tells you that, hey, you should probably waste another 40 seconds. Also, the other part of this that, maybe could kind of let Sirianni off the hook, but also he's the head coach. The defense just completely let Kirk Cousins and the Falcons just walk down the field and win that game. Like there was no pass rush, no resistance whatsoever.
They have no pass rush at all, and they're gonna be in trouble. That is the one thing that they're missing from being a contender again. They are a pretender without a pass rush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Dave, what do you think? What do you think about this whole thing? Like the Eagles were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and like I said, they started 9-1 last year. Looked like they were on the way of doing it again. They lose I think 6 of their last 7 or something like, or 6 of their last 8 or something like that, and then get absolutely blown away in the playoffs by the Bucs. And now, hey, they're 1-1. They beat the Packers in Brazil. But that, like I said, they're week 5. It's an early bye. It seems like an early out potentially for these guys if they're 1-3. So, what's your take on the Eagles?
It's hard to really disagree, but I also kind of give Sirianni a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. I think we're in a league where they give up on coaches so frequently and so often.
Yes.
And I think with Sirianni, he's been in the Eagles role for a few years now. His record is 35-18, which is really not that bad. I know right now he's on a kind of a hot mess of a stretch from last season and into this season, but he's won postseason games with them. He's got a winning record. They have a quality team, and to get rid of a coach and make these players go through into a new system, new coaching system, everything like that, mid-season especially, to me it's just a bad idea. I would give him the rest of the season for sure and see where they're at, but I just think I fully disagree with firing a coach mid-season. I just don't think it's the right.
I don't think that either. So
they're not gonna fire him. I'm just saying like that there's an easy out potentially for the Eagles considering. And the problem is when the head coach, especially of a supremely talented football team like the Philadelphia Eagles, like I said, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, like they got dudes all over the place.
They're loaded.
Like if the coach is the problem and you've got potentially like a Bill Belichick sitting out there, like you can't sit around and wait. And Jeffrey Lurie is very forgiving as an owner. Right. He's let a lot of things go. Like he fired Doug Peterson really late. So I don't think that they're going to want to, blow this thing dead. I think they'll be fine. But if this team is not like, very far along the NFC towards the playoff time, he can't come back. Like he can't, especially with Bill.
I think he has the rest of the season to prove himself. I do think he will be on the hot seat by the end of the season if the Eagles do not make the playoffs or if they're not quite in contention. But I think right now you just kind of run with it and hope that your team starts performing better. I think the Eagles are too talented to be a bad team. Bad coaching decisions happen, and it's a part of the game. I mean, look no further than the Detroit Lions in last year's postseason.
That was bad.
We all remember what happened there. But coaches are allowed to have a bad game or bad decision without just being fired over it. I think Sirianni gets his time, and if they're not there at the end of the season, he's on the hot seat for sure, and maybe gets fired. But I don't think there's any rush to move on from him, despite the poor performance late last season and early this season so far.
No, I'm all about hot takes. Does he get fired if they lose in the first round, the wild card round or the divisional?
Well, like I said, the more spikes you take is like where I'm going with it, and like saying, hey, you've got an early bye week in week 5, and you've got 2 really tough games ahead, and you're potentially staring 1 and 3 in the face. Like that's a spicy take. It's not going to happen, but I'm all about hot takes too. So
I don't know if they were hard against the cap or something, but I mean Hassan Reddick being traded, I thought was a head scratcher too, and I mean, you're still playing Brandon Graham at least probably 60-70% of the snaps. That dude is older than dirt. So
and Hassan Reddick's not even playing over in New York. Like he's still in the middle of a contract dispute. So, all right. Well, yeah, great takes on that. Let's get into our teams, guys. And this is the Mad Sports Show here on the Off the Mic Sports Network. Got Danny Udelf and Andrew Marks. Andrew, let's start with your team because this was just. I mean, listen. When I was making my picks in week 2, especially after you guys destroyed my Cleveland Browns, I was like, man, this almost feels like a perfect opportunity for a classic Cowboys letdown at home. I did not see 44-19 and the New Orleans Saints just walking into Jerry World and just absolutely just destroying you guys. Alvin Kamara just goes crazy. I don't know. Alvin Kamara, I think, hates Mike Zimmer because I think he had 6 touchdowns in a game when Mike Zimmer was the coach of the Vikings. So he had 4 touchdowns in this game. It was not close. Dak was fine, but the defense is really the story here because they gave up 44 points. Granted, the Saints are just destroying people right now. So, Andrew, what's your perspective on your Cowboys? You're 1-1. Obviously, you had the good showing against my team, but my team was kind of just a dumpster fire in that game. But this was an eye opener for me. What about you?
It was for me too. In all seriousness, I mean, they go out and they get Kendricks. They get Overshown back from injury. Damone Clark is back. They draft Leofau, if I'm pronouncing his name right, from Notre Dame in the 3rd round. He had a hell of a preseason. All those linebackers looked like complete shit against the Saints. I mean, and if you go back and look at the tape, it's like junior high school JV level, like filling the gaps and playing professional run defense. Alvin Kamara made those guys look like they just didn't belong. It looked like Big 12 football. And I don't know. I was disgusted. But again, it's the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm just not surprised. They are constantly, every other week, just not prepared. I am getting a little bit tired of the Dak hate. I'm not sure Dak is ever going to lead us to a Super Bowl or for sure win one. But even if you take away his 2 interceptions on Sunday, the Cowboys still lose by 11? So I mean, that's 2 scores with a 2-point conversion. I mean, it's an ass kicking. This ain't Dak Prescott's fault. He doesn't play linebacker, and he is not the defensive coordinator. It was a terrible effort and preparation from Mike Zimmer, but I'm not surprised. It was a classic Jerry Jones hire, and it doesn't matter what they upgrade. It doesn't matter who the coordinator is. It's just typical Cowboys, what we've seen the last 5 years or so. They just don't show up when it matters.
Yeah, they get your hopes up, man. Like I feel bad for you. They get your hopes up, and then all of a sudden, it's just like that was such a convincing win over. You said it was a hyped up game. It was a nationally televised game, and then you come out like I didn't really think much of the Saints, but they did score 40 points. But it was against Carolina, and we talked about Carolina earlier on. Carolina's a dumpster fire. But
Yeah.
I didn't see Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara just running all over the place on your boys, man. Like that was, like I said, an eye opener. Danny, like this is like like we feel like most of the time in our group chat, like Andrew is very pessimistic about a lot of things with this team, even
True.
when things are good. So, did this surprise you at all that they got absolutely destroyed like this?
I've been friends with Andrew for 15 years now, and I think in that time I followed the Cowboys a lot more closely, and I don't think anything the Cowboys do surprises me anymore.
Right.
It's so funny. Like the Cowboys have been in like such a good position for the longest time between Tony Romo and then Dak Prescott, and for some reason they can just never put pen to paper. They can never make the playoffs, make the Super Bowl. They just can't get there, and I don't know what it is. I don't know. I mean, I know Jerry Jones is just the biggest problem in the entire world, and I know Andrew would probably agree to that to a significant extent. But for some reason, the Cowboys just always seem to have the worst luck and do the weirdest things. And on paper, the Cowboys defense doesn't look that bad, but they got absolutely fleeced by the Saints. I mean, there's no other way to put it. They played pretty good in week 1, but week 2 was just a hot mess. I want to see how your team kind of rebounds after that game, because honestly, if you guys let that get to you, I think you're gonna have a really rough season, and I don't know where the Cowboys go from there.
They got
If
Baltimore. They got
Yeah,
Baltimore.
and I was just about to say that, Mike. I'm pessimistic about that. I don't think the Baltimore Ravens have too much talent to lose 3 straight games to start the season.
Right.
I think this is an L for the Cowboys, especially if the linebackers are going to perform like that and Zimmer's not going to have the game plan they need. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson are going to run all over us.
Yeah, it's gonna be a very very interesting game because like the Ravens, that's a whole separate issue. We won't talk about them on here. Danny and I, being Steelers and Browns fans, we'll get to the Steelers in a second. We do not like the Baltimore Ravens, but the fact that they're 0-2 makes me smile and makes me
I love it.
smirk because that is just wonderful. That is just wonderful that they are 0-2. Same thing with the Bengals, and we'll get to the Bengals at the end here. So Danny,
Yes, that's
what
me.
in the fuck is going on with your Pittsburgh Steelers? Because they have one touchdown, not just between offense and defense and special teams. They have one touchdown in 2024 through 2 games. They are 2-0. What the fuck, man? Like we and also, like, full disclosure, we've known all of us have known each other for like 15 years, and we've had this common bond between our teams, and we poke fun at each other. But the one thing that I've always known from Danny is that he has had this love-hate relationship with Mike Tomlin. Even though he has consistently just been mid or right above mid, this guy always finds a way to win. So I'm not surprised by this. Maybe I should be, but I think the big thing is that, hey, 1 touchdown and 31 points through 2 games. And yet they went 13-6 at Denver. Denver's not good. Bo Nix, God bless him. I watched him play in college. He's not ready to play in the NFL. Like, you can see that clear as day. But Danny, how the hell is this even possible?
Well, I'll tell you, it comes down to the defense. The defense is fantastic. We've allowed 150 rush yards through 2 games. Our front 7 has absolutely contained and stopped the opposing rushing team. Our defensive backs, we have 4 interceptions through 2 games. It comes down to defense. Our offense right now is basically just doing enough to win. That's all it really is. We're getting into field goal territory. Chris Boswell has 8 field goals so far. And by the way, his stats are pretty through the roof so far. He's got 4 50-plus yard field goals and 2 40-plus yard field goals. And if that tells you how we're doing on offense, if that doesn't tell you how we're doing on offense, I don't know what does. Because obviously, moving the ball to just past midfield is about the only specialty the Steelers have right now. 1 touchdown so far, and that's all to show for it. But I trust in this defense. T.J. Watt's healthy. Cameron Hayward's always been a beast. Minka Fitzpatrick so far has been the leading tackler. It's a very strong group on defense that can carry this team. I just don't know what the heck is going to happen with this offense. I don't see how this is sustainable for an entire season.
Who do you think's going to be the quarterback moving forward is the question. Is Justin Fields shown you enough? Granted, he hasn't had to do a whole hell of a lot over Russell Wilson. Do you think that Justin Fields is going to be the long-term starter for you guys, at least for this year?
Well, I think
play him until he loses, right?
Right, exactly. roll with the
Russ,
hot hand, right? Why not?
yeah, Russ was obviously signed to start, and at some point Russ is going to get the start, even if Fields is playing well, or even if Fields starts to play better. Right now, Fields is basically your basic game manager. It's kind of what we had last year with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph, and it's kind of what we've had basically since Ben Roethlisberger kind of got injured and became a game manager. We've not had great quarterback play in about 5 years, and it's just been game management with strong defense, and that's really all it's been for the Steelers, and that's why they keep finishing above 500. You alluded to my love-hate relationship with Tomlin. I'd say it's more of a hate relationship with Tomlin.
Yes. Like in the last 5 years, it's been like, I mean, you guys haven't won a playoff game. What?
2016.
So yeah, like eight.
We're 0-4 in our last playoff appearances. We have not won a playoff game since 2016. We haven't, Tomlin to me should have been let go years ago, and I think it's just, we're basically a 9-8 team every year. That's what it is. And that's what it's going to be. We might go 9-8 again this year, and that's crazy to me. I would love to get like a new franchise quarterback. I was kind of hoping we'd go like 4-13 or something, and maybe grab like Carson Beck or something like that, and give ourselves a new opportunity in this draft. But here we are 2-0, and we're playing the Chargers this coming week, and sounds like Justin Herbert might not even play. So, I mean,
Harbaugh's got them rolling, man. Like Harbaugh has got them rolling, man. Like it's impressive. Like J.K. Dobbins has found like the Ohio State version of himself, and Justin Herbert hasn't had to do a whole hell of a lot anyway.
That's true. That's true. But if he's not playing, I feel like it increases our defense's chance. That's for sure. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of this team. I don't want Russ to start. I like Justin Fields, and I'd rather go with the game manager at this point because I'm just not a Russell Wilson guy. But we'll kind of see how it goes. I know he's going to start at some point, and I'm very surprised to be 2-0, honestly.
Hey, unlike the Panthers that traded up for a QB in a situation for a QB that was not ready, the Steelers next year, even if they go 9-8, 10-7, they need to trade up and get a franchise quarterback. This would be the opportunity where it makes sense to give up 2 1s and 2 2s for a franchise guy. That's when you do it, not when you have zero talent on a roster.
Oh yeah,
so, right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love to see the Steelers go get somebody like Beck or hell, even Shadur, even though that would be so annoying.
Shadur on the Steelers would just be odd. I mean, I know Danny loves this guy. Not that we're going to go too deep into college football. He loves Cam Ward from Miami.
I do like Cam Ward.
Cam Ward, I watched him at Washington State. He is killing it in Miami right now. Like that would be honestly a really good idea because he's got the pieces of Justin Fields, like sort of backyard football, but he's got the arm talent too. He can sling it. So yeah, I'm with you, Andrew. Like, especially if we're peeling it back to the way we started the show, this is why Carolina's move is just so confusing from all different layers. That they jumped up too quickly, they gave up way too much for a guy who is talented, but they didn't have any plan whatsoever. They were like, "Oh, rescue us." And they gave him no help whatsoever. They took away the coach literally like halfway through last season, and they're starting over again. And because you've set the principle of with coaches under David Tepper, Dave Canales has got to cover his ass, and that's why he's doing this move, which is not the right move. But yeah, I think that the Steelers, like, they went into this season with the mindset that, like, hey, if one of these guys pops, maybe we'll have a short-term gap. They obviously were hoping it would be Russell Wilson, even though Russell's like near the end of his career. Let's call it what it is. With Justin Fields, he's still relatively young and raw to the point where maybe there could become something. But in 2 games this season, I've seen nothing to convince me that he's the future there whatsoever.
And real quick on the Steelers, I mean, I was kind of making fun of the hire because, again, we like to troll each other about our teams and everything. But, like, Arthur Smith doesn't do it for me at all. I mean, he is the most cookie-cutter offensive coordinator there is.
How did he get a head coaching job is my question.
I have no idea. He runs the most boring offense. It is not explosive
They were number 1 seed in the AFC that year, and they lost in the first round. He made Ryan Tannehill look somewhat good, and yet somehow he's good enough to be the Atlanta Falcons head coach. What the hell?
I was telling, I mean, I know I'm a Texas Tech guy and I'm a little bit biased. I love Cliff Kingsbury, but like I figured somebody like Cliff would be a change of pace for what the Steelers normally do. Might rejuvenate Tomlin's career. I don't know. Arthur Smith to me is eventually going to get Tomlin fired. I know, like we've been saying that for 10 years that he's going to get fired, but like
we've been waiting for that, man. Like Danny has been like, I feel at the end of every season, Danny's like, man, we got to fire Tomlin. We got to fire Tomlin. We got to fire Tomlin. And then here we are. He's still there. Yep. He's like a cat with 9 lives. It's unbelievable.
Way more than 9 lives at this point.
What do you think of Arthur Smith, Danny, real quick?
Yeah, I think he calls a very black and white game. He's pretty bland. I think he
reminds me of Jason Garrett.
With the right pieces,
that's a great one.
That is a good comparison. Yeah. With the right pieces, I think he can be successful in Pittsburgh, but right now we don't have the pieces. I mean, our offensive line is still kind of being rebuilt. It's very young. Najee Harris is obviously a fantastic running back, but we don't really have a lot to go off of to, protect him with all these young players and stuff. We are in a rebuild mode on our offense, and we're in an elite mode on our defense. It's a really weird position to be in. Yeah,
because you got T.J. Watt, man, still the best player in the. Like, I feel like he's in the backfield all the time. It's a terror. He's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. All right, let's talk about my Cleveland Browns, guys, and you guys can bring your jokes here.
Do we have to?
I mean, it's not hard because I feel like I've tried to be the voice of reason in the Browns fan base because the Browns won 18-13 at Jacksonville. If you watch this game, the Browns were clearly the better team throughout. Their defense was awesome in this game. JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was all over the place. Myles Garrett had a sack. They got a safety at the end. Maybe I can't believe I'm going to even talk about punts. I feel like I'm Pat McAfee. But Corey Bojorquez maybe had one of the most clutch punts I've ever seen in my life. On the plus side of the field, he pins them down at the 1-yard line, and it leads to a sack on the next play. But really what I want to talk about here is Deshaun Watson.
Most Browns thing ever to celebrate.
Most Browns thing ever. Thank you. Because here's why it's the most Browns thing ever. The Browns, like we talked about bad quarterback decision-making when it comes to the Carolina Panthers. The Browns have paid Deshaun Watson $230 million fully guaranteed. I think he's played now 13 or 14 games in 3 seasons. And he looked better than he did last week. That wasn't going to be hard. He was awful against the Cowboys. But he had sub 200 yards passing and 1 rushing touchdown. And if you guys looked at the internet, you would not think that like he played mid. Everybody's like, oh my God, he ran around, did a backyard school play and had a 5-yard completion to Jerry Jeudy, which by the way, led to absolutely positively nothing. He looked good. Jerry Judy's actually been a sneaky good acquisition, but I'm sick and tired of people in this Cleveland Browns fan base trying to hope and pray that Deshaun Watson is the savior just because they gave him this money. It was a bad trade. It was a horrible move. I'm not going to go to the whole Baker Mayfield that should he still be there. They were right to move off of him. It was not working. They were at the point of no return. They just picked the wrong guy. They just flat out picked the wrong guy. I feel like the suspension is coming down with this latest allegation. We don't have to get too knee deep into it. The allegations are gross, much like the rest of the allegations that he had previously. But 18-13, they were way better than the Jags in this game. They were lucky to get out of there to win. They won in spite of Deshaun Watson. So bring your guys' jokes here because, like I said, I've been suffering through this for 25 years with the Cleveland Browns, trying to hope and pray that we get a quarterback. I'm done with this guy. Like, I just don't want to deal with it anymore because I feel like as long as that price tag's attached to him, everybody's just going to be hoping and praying that he's going to be he's washed up.
He's got what, $72 million cap hit the next 2 years?
Yes, you're hoping that he gets suspended so you can like get out of some of that money at this point. But still, why give him that contract?
I mean, but also you can't keep a guy just because he makes a lot of money. I mean, like draft a quarterback and move on and have him just be the backup that makes a $72 million cap hit. I don't care. Like, you can't hold on to a guy you don't believe in as your starting quarterback.
Joe Flacco took him to the playoffs, guys.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco, who was on his couch, took this team to the playoffs and ran this offense way better than Deshaun Watson has.
Yeah.
That's the biggest indicator.
And to be honest, I don't really love the weapons right now. I thought Brandon Ayuk would have been great for you. I don't love the weapon. I don't love the outlook of the Browns offense. They got to do more for their personnel. Like,
we need Nick Chubb back so bad. Like, the running game is terrible. Like, we're relying on Deontay Foreman and Jerome Ford, who, God bless him, is a backup running back.
Yeah.
We need Nick Chubb back.
And like Amari is a solid number 2 at this point in his career. In my opinion, I doubt you'll have a winning record by like week 8. If anything, you'll be 500 or something like that. But at that point, I mean, I think you really should consider just like trying to load up on as many draft picks as possible and trade guys like Amari. Hell, I'd even look at, like Elijah Moore. Just see what you can get, mid-round draft picks, and just try to stockpile as much talent going forward as possible because you can't hang on for mediocre seasons. It's what the Dallas Cowboys do. It's what the Steelers do.
Exactly.
The Browns take it to another extreme. Like
if we make the playoffs, it's like we went to the Super Bowl, guys.
Yeah,
like, seriously, last year was like one of the greatest years of my life, just considering how it was like, oh my god, I've never seen this and we've had two playoff seasons in the last 4 years, and Kevin Stefanski is honest to God maybe one of the best coaches in Browns history. Considering he's got two coach of the years already. It's unbelievable what that guy's been able to do. And then you get Joe Flacco to come in and run your offense, and he looks like Super Bowl MVP Joe Flacco. What it's wild to me. And then Deshaun Watson comes in there, and it's just we've all had this false sense of hope because we were willing to grossly overpay for a guy who, let's be honest, they got hoodwinked and bamboozled. Jimmy Haslam, if not for David Tepper, Jimmy Haslam's one of the worst owners in football. I cannot stand that guy. And
I'd take him over Jerry.
and Jerry, much like Mike Tomlin, is a cat with 9 lives. This guy just won't go away. He just will not go away. Okay, let's wrap up with this, guys. We have a group chat, and we now call it the Patrick Mahomes Fan Club. And for full background on this, we all love 15. He's amazing, but also Andrew has something in common with Patrick Mahomes. They're both proud Texas Tech Red Raider alums. So Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they're 2-0. They beat the Bengals. This seems like it might be another version of the AFC Championship game. It seems like when Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes are healthy, these two teams are the two of the best teams in the AFC. So the Chiefs win. They got the help of a late defensive pass interference call at the end of the game. But there's a narrative going around in the NFL, and I know we all don't like officials, but there's this narrative because the Chiefs have now won 3 Super Bowls. They've got Taylor Swift now as being a super fan because she's dating Travis Kelce, that somehow the NFL is rigging these games for the Kansas City Chiefs. First of all, if you watch that play, that defensive pass interference that led to the field goal at the end, that was the definition of defensive pass interference in the NFL. You cannot get there early and you cannot run through the receiver. You just can't do that. So it was the right call. Also, Jamar Chase earlier on in this game just gets a foolish, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty because he thought he got hip drop tackled and was yelling at a ref. I was like, Jamar, stop getting in your own head because you don't have a contract and actually try to win a football game. The Bengals were good enough to win this game, but there were a lot of other reasons why they lost. It wasn't because the Chiefs are just good, man. They've been good. And so, I love Patrick. He did not have his best game, but in terms of this, because I know we all like the Chiefs and we all like what they're all about. Guys, this narrative's bullshit, right? That the Chiefs are getting blatant favoritism from the league, right? Or am I crazy?
I agree. I'm sure Danny does too.
100%.
And I hate to break it to everybody. They're going to win again this year. They're going to be a three-peat. That's just is what it is. You better get used to it. Has nothing to do with Taylor Swift. Has nothing to do with ratings. They're just a dynasty. I mean, it's like watching the Warriors with Durant and Curry. I mean, it is what it is. They build a team the right way. They sign the right players. They choose the right players over other players on extensions. And Andy Reid is, other than Bill Belichick, probably the greatest coach of all time. So it is what it is. And people need to stop hating just because they're tired of the status quo.
Yeah, it's the same thing we saw with the Patriots for years. Everyone hated them because they were the best team. It's very natural for fans to say, hey, unless it's my favorite team, I really don't want to see this team win.
Right.
On the other hand, I like the Chiefs. I like Patrick Mahomes a lot. I like Travis Kelce. I'm totally fine with all the Taylor Swift stuff. I know a lot of people are annoyed with the media attention. I don't care. It makes it more fun. It makes it more fun. It brings more fans to the stadiums. It brings more fans to TV. All these Taylor Swift fans. She's one of the most popular people in the world. Suddenly, you have a crap ton of people watching the Chiefs that never had any interest in football before, and they're like, "Hey, football's kind of cool." You're getting a whole new, fan base out of this. I think people just need to stop being,
Bitter.
and bitter about the way that the Chiefs are. The Chiefs are building a dynasty. Andy Reid is an amazing coach. He has absolutely full control of the AFC right now. I don't really see a team out there that can compete with the Chiefs this year again. I think the Chiefs have a pretty good chance at winning the AFC and getting to the Super Bowl again. Will they win another one? I don't know for sure, but
It's a crapshoot.
The AFC looks very weak to start the season so far.
Right.
I mean, you have my 2-0 Steelers on top of the AFC North right now, 2 games ahead of the Baltimore Ravens, who I assumed would just run away with the division again this year, and we have Justin Fields as our starter with 1 touchdown so far in 2 games. I mean, the AFC North is not going to compete this year. I don't really see a competitor for the Chiefs this year that can hold them back.
And I thought it was stacked. I really thought the AFC was going to be nuts this year. But yeah, I mean, betting money would be smart on either the Bengals or the Ravens losing this week. I doubt both win. And you're going to have
the Bengals have I think they have Washington this week, so they should win. But they
should, but that's not a guarantee.
That's not a guarantee because they lost to the Patriots in week 1. But the Ravens guys. I know we weren't going to go down. The Ravens, obviously, Andrew, they're playing your Cowboys this week. That's not an easy game. And then they got Buffalo, and Buffalo's 2-0. The Ravens, if they're not careful, could be 0-4. I don't think that's going to happen, but holy shit, that's not a storyline because remember, they were a toe from, potentially beating Kansas City in week 1. Baltimore and Cincinnati are both good enough to potentially beat the Chiefs in a game, but it just comes down to I have full faith in 15. He's just as good as there is, and he's on his way to potentially being the greatest of all time. He's what has he been in the league for 7 years now, 8 years? He already got 3 Super Bowls. He's been to 4.
If he wins this year, that's 4, and by the age of 29, I think he will catch Brady if he wins this year.
Yeah. It's just amazing. And I think the biggest difference between the Chiefs and the Patriots, while we're making that comparison in terms of blatant favoritism from the refs and the NFL rolling with their favorites, the Chiefs are at least likable.
Yeah.
The Patriots are not, okay? I see a lot of people who do not like the Chiefs, and I think a lot of that comes from, winning all the time. And, some people maybe for some odd reason think Travis Kelce is annoying. I don't.
The Kelsey brothers are legends. Come on.
Shaker Heights Finest from Ohio, went to Cincinnati. I love that guy. And the fact that he's dating maybe the most famous person in the world and the top pop star, I think is freaking awesome. So
agreed.
If anything, that enhances the stock of the Kansas City Chiefs. They're just a likable organization. They got a lovable head coach. We all love Andy Reid. After he got over the hump of not being able to win the big one, he is the best coach in football. And then, like I said, it all goes back to number 15 in red. He's as good as there ever is. He's potentially as good as there's ever going to be because he just does things at the quarterback position that nobody does, and yet he finds ways to win. Last year, they had no business winning the Super Bowl because of how they weren't as talented. At least on the offensive side of the ball, they had Chris Jones and they had some good defensive players, but that was probably the least talented Chiefs team, and Mahomes won.
Yeah, that's how special he is. I mean, he had a receiving core of Valdez-Scantling and Watson and
Kadarius Toney was now in the Browns practice squad. Kadarius Toney was costing them games last year.
A rookie Rashee Rice who looks phenomenal now, but he was an unknown last year out of SMU. That just shows how special Pat is. He also lost his offensive coordinator, although Andy Reid really calls the plays. But they had Nagy back as their official OC, and he had a bottom 5 starting receiver core in the NFL, and he won a Super Bowl. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it almost kind of reminds me of where Peyton Manning was when the Colts were first kind of coming along, and he had some really good receivers there, but he had a few years where he had some really unknown guys there, and these elite quarterbacks, they know what to do with whether they have the best receivers or the worst receivers out there.
Hey, real quick,
what
do we think of this Nebraska quarterback imitating Pat so much? To me, it's starting to get kind of creepy.
It's getting a little bit weird. I like Dylan Raiola,
especially for being the number 3 prospect in the country. I expect that out of a obnoxious no-name or 3-star, but the guy who's the second best quarterback in the country and the third best player overall, basically playing Halloween as Patrick Mahomes every week. It's
like literally, it looks exactly
embarrassing.
the same. It looks exactly the same. It
You
looks
squint-
exactly
you
the
squint your eyes,
same.
you can't tell that's a Chiefs jersey or a Nebraska jersey. It's just weird at this point. And Nebraska's getting good. Matt Rule is legit, by the way. But like, they're getting good, so they're on TV more often in prime time. And you got this guy who's just playing Patrick Mahomes every week. It's cringe.
So speaking of which, when you brought up Matt Rule, he was a Carolina Panthers head coach, and that organization was so bad that they made him look like a terrible coach. Matt Rule is awesome. That guy is awesome. That guy won at Baylor. That guy won at Temple. And now he's winning at Nebraska, where it has been hard to win at Nebraska. And
he turned a decade into stuck, and that they had a decade of stuck for them into a winning program in 2 years. That guy's great.
He's great.
He's a phenomenal college coach.
Yeah, don't let the Carolina Panthers and their just horribly run organization convince you that Matt Rule is anything but great. Yeah, that's a perfect way to end this thing and sort of wrap this thing up, because that's where we started with Bryce Young and Carolina Panthers and just their awfulness, and we ran through all of our teams. Also, like, obviously, it's always great to talk about the Chiefs, because as we said, we are like the vice. I'm not gonna say vice, but basically we are the Patrick Mahomes fan club. That's what our group chat says. So we love that. Boys, this was fun. Always appreciate y'all. Mad Sports Show. We're gonna try and do this as much as we can. Bringing it back. As you guys can see, these boys bring some spicy takes, and it's very entertaining. We're gonna refine this over the course of time. Like, share, and subscribe here to the channel at OT Mike Sports on Twitter, at Off the Mic 28 if you want to follow me, at AS Marks 18 for Andrew. Danny does not have a Twitter because he's weird. Because he is weird.
Don't follow me.
Don't follow.
You don't even have one anymore.
You don't even have one. I mean, it was like hockey fan from '87 or something like that.
I had a Twitter account years ago, and it was so long that between the times that I used it that they actually just deleted it because they probably thought I was dead or something.
Well, at the same time, Danny, at the same time, Danny, being on Twitter is a blessing and a curse considering who runs it. So, but anyway, thanks for joining us here on the Mad Sports Show. We'll be back in the not too distant future, boys. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you.
See ya.